Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and today we're joined by Jai Bazevski, a fellow Aussie, all the way from up north. Jai is a life coach and personal trainer with 13 years of experience. He transitioned from an IT career into the health industry after an almost fatal cardiac arrest and rare heart condition that ultimately changed the path of his life. He was the owner of SQ1 Fitness Gym in Sydney's West from 2010 to 2021, and he now resides in northern New South Wales in Australia, helping people as an online coach to overcome their limitations and develop a strong mind and healthy body through his mindset and fitness coaching. Welcome, Jai.
Thank you, Magic. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you here. Now, before we launch into my standard 3 questions that I ask everyone, tell us about your cardiac arrest.
Yeah, it was a wild journey. So I was 27 years old at the time. It was 2008. And I was at that time not in the fitness industry, not doing anything that I've been doing for the past 13, 14 years. I was actually working in IT as a network engineer. And that was a career that I got into after high school because it's something that I just kind of stumbled upon. If you think back to like the 1998, 1999 era, that's when the IT industry was just absolutely blowing up, particularly in Australia. And there was an opportunity for me to take on a traineeship. I had a part-time job when I was at school answering phones for like a bank, basically. And and they just basically offered me a traineeship, and then that turned into a 13-year career where, I did enjoy it for most of that time, and I did really well out of it. But towards the end of it, ultimately, it wasn't my passion. And towards the last sort of 3-4 years, I was really starting to hate it, resent it, and just not be happy on a daily basis. And I think that was probably a contributor to the downfall of my health. And then one day I'd been out and, I wasn't taking care of my health. I was looking for ways to fulfill my joy and my needs on a emotional level through going out and drinking alcohol and just doing stuff that, is unsustainable, basically. And this was one of those nights, and I'd gone out and had a huge night, and I was hungover the following day. And then on the Sunday morning, I'd gone out with another group of friends to play basketball. We'd booked out a basketball court to just go and, have a bit of fun for a couple of hours. And that was early in the morning, and I'd gone there, for a 9 o'clock or something like that. And we were playing basketball and having a good time. And then my heart started to just beat erratically, and I couldn't control it. I couldn't calm it down. It wouldn't come down, basically. And then so I went home and tried to relax and had some food and, had a shower, and I tried to meditate, and I tried to do anything that I possibly could to just reset myself back to just feeling normal again. But my heart rate was increasing in speed, but it was also completely irregular. And about 7 hours had gone by this time. It was going into the evening, and then I was going to dinner with my family at my brother's place. And so I'd gone to my brother's place, and my family could tell that I was completely off. And then I told them, how I felt or whatever. And then my mum was like, "We got to go to the hospital." And I was like, "Oh no, that's the last place I want to go." And I thought I'd be fine. I thought it would go away. I thought it'd be okay. And then she ended up bringing our family doctor, and our family doctor kind of pushed her to encourage me to go to the hospital because, something to do with your heart, you don't want to take a risk. And then she got off the phone and she's like, "I just spoke to the doctor, and, she's adamant that, we should go to the hospital." So I was like, okay. I thought more so to put their minds at ease. I thought I was going to be okay. And then we go to the hospital, and they checked me in. And then because, I'm this 27-year-old guy, and I guess they just thought I'd been on drugs, and they couldn't really explain why I was, having the reaction that I was having, other than this guy's high off drugs or he's had a bad reaction to drugs, and which was not the case. And so I was in there, I was in the ICU, and they're basically doing nothing. They're just monitoring me. And then I was starting to get anxiety because this thing was just getting more intense, and I guess the environment was getting intense. And so I pretty much called them out, and I was like, what are you guys doing for me? Because like, I'm starting to get a little bit panicked now. And they're like, okay, they told my family to leave the room. And then they came back to me and they said, look, you need to tell us what drugs you've had because we can't help you otherwise. And I had to convince them that I hadn't had any drugs at all and that there was something wrong that I didn't know what was happening. So then they eventually believed me, and then they decided to give me a drug through, a needle that stops your heart and resets your heart. And it's for people with an arrhythmia issue, which they assume that I had. And they asked my permission to do that. And I said yes, because I didn't know what else to do. And I was scared. And I just said, like, you guys need to lead the way. So they gave me this drug, and then I just had a complete adverse reaction to it. I went into a coma, non-responsive coma for 8 minutes, and my heart rate didn't change from the weird thing that it was doing. And I wasn't even breathing for myself. So they had a ventilator in my throat. And after 8 minutes, I flatlined and I was clinically dead for 3 minutes until they defibrillated me back to life. And they defibrillated me 2 times. The first time, there was still no response. And then the second time, I jumped up. When I jumped up, I thought that I was like projectile vomiting, like on everybody, but really, because I didn't realize I had this ventilator down my throat. And my natural instinct, without even realizing that I did it, my natural instinct was just to clear the passageway. So I grabbed whatever it was and I just ripped it out. And then that created a frenzy because that's a dangerous thing to do. So they had to x-ray my chest and check that I didn't tear my trachea and do all this damage. And so they were really panicked about that. But in that moment, after I woke up, I just remember checking in on myself and asking myself, is my heart doing that weird thing? And it wasn't. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to be fine. So I was like, okay, I'm good. So I just collapsed into the bed and just let them do whatever they wanted to do, x-ray me, whatever. I didn't have any pain or anything. And it turns out that it was fine. I didn't do any damage ripping this ventilator out. And then I had the best night's sleep that I have ever had in my life in that hospital. They had an oxygen mask on me and they were just monitoring me overnight. And then I woke up the next morning and my memory was a bit foggy because they didn't really tell me what had happened the night that it happened because I was so tired. I kind of just passed out asleep. And I was kind of happy that my heart rate was okay. And I was just so tired that I just ended up falling asleep. So I wake up the next morning and I'm still like, I haven't been filled in on everything that had happened. And then I looked at my watch and it was, I guess it was like 6:30 or something like that in the morning. And I was like, I need to get out of here. Like it's Monday morning. I have to go to work. I got stuff to do. And I flagged down a nurse who walked by, and then she's like, "Oh, you're up. How are you feeling?" And then I was like, "I feel great. I need to get out of here. Like, what do I need to do to get out of here?" And then she started laughing, and she's like, like you are not going anywhere. We need to figure out what the hell happened to you last night." And then she filled me in, and she said, "Look, you went into a cardiac arrest, and you flatlined. You were clinically dead for 3 minutes. It took us 2 defibrillations to get your heart rate started again, and we don't know what caused it. The drug that we gave you, you had a reaction to it and it put you in this coma. And so all this random stuff happened and we don't want to let you go yet. We want to keep you for observation and make sure that this doesn't happen again." And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then so I stayed there for 4 or 5 days. And then after all that time, they were taking my blood and they had the ECG monitor on my chest the whole time. And then cardiologist finally comes through and he's like, okay, we've been monitoring you every day and this is what we think's happening. We think that you've got this rare heart condition. And there's 2 ways that we can treat it. And one is by medicating you. So you basically just go on medication, take a daily medication for the rest of your life, and it shouldn't be an issue for you. And we just monitor you. Or you could have surgery and you don't have to take medication and we can fix it permanently. And in that moment, I just was searching for certainty. That was like my main driver was certainty in my health. And I'm not a fan of the pharmaceutical industry or taking medication. And I did not want to take medication for the rest of my life. So that was virtually an instant no for me. I didn't want to have heart surgery either. But when I weighed the two up, the way he presented it, I thought to myself, having the heart surgery is probably the best option. If he seems to think it's a good option, then I'll go for that. So we opted for that. So, but I needed to do it ASAP because I was scared out of my pants on this whole situation. So I'm like, can we do it today? Can we do it tomorrow? When can we do it? He's like, we can't do it for another week or whatever. So I ended up going home, and then I went back to the hospital and I did this heart surgery. And then I went home for 3 months and recovered. And it was keyhole surgery through the groin. So they wind up these wires up in through your artery and get into your heart and do all this stuff. And so they did that. And then I went home for 3 months, and they were still monitoring me. And they had like the home ECG test, the thing that they wanted me to do every now and again. And it turns out after the 3 months, I thought that I was recovered and in the clear. And then it turns out after the 3 months, they said to me, you're not in the clear. Your ECGs are showing irregularities, and we think that we haven't fixed the problem. We want to do the surgery again. And that was the lowest point of my entire life when they said that to me, because I just got all this fear, all this doubt, all these emotions just came in where I thought to myself, I can't beat this. I can't get past this. I'm not meant to be alive. This is going to kill me. I'm not going to make it through this surgery. Like I'm destined for doom, blah, blah, blah. And so I said to the surgeon, like, again, same story. Like, let's do it today. Let's do it tomorrow. How fast can you get this in? And then he's like, it's going to take me a week to organize it. And then I was like, okay, book me in. So I went in and I did this second surgery, which is literally the exact same surgery. And I did it the second time. And then it was successful, thank God. And then I went home for 3 months and recovered again. And then that's when I was able to kind of get my life started again. And that whole process really was the huge transformation that I went through, being in hospital, being in the cardiac ward, waiting for the surgery, being around all the other men that were also in a similar situation where, they were older than me. I was the youngest person there, the only guy in their 20s. Everyone's in their 50s and 60s. They're out of shape, overweight, look like crap, going in for quadruple bypasses and heart transplants and pacemakers and all of these like full on open heart surgery type stuff. And they're getting therapy at the same time every day. So I'm sitting in this room, this common room in my bed, and then every day therapists are coming in, they're pulling, the shower screen across to have a therapy session with these individuals and preparing them for death. And that was the most, I guess, impactful thing that happened. One of the most impactful things that came out of the whole experience was that it just blew my mind, just hearing all of these therapy sessions and how they were getting these people ready for death. And if they didn't make it, and have they spoken to their families and blah, 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 do they have their affairs in order, like all this crazy stuff. And so it just really made me contemplate life. And, as a 27-year-old, that's not something that you would generally do. You think that you're invincible, at least I did. And just don't contemplate health as an issue at all, at least at that time. And so it really changed the way I think about everything. And I just had a newfound appreciation for life and health and taking care of myself. And that's what the switch just flicked in me. And I was like, okay, from now on, I'm going to be the healthiest person on the planet. And not only that, I'm going to help all these other people that are like these guys that are in here now to try and avoid this situation. And I guess the line that kept on coming up in my head that I kept thinking about was prevention is the cure. And so I thought to myself, none of us need to be here. We can take care of ourselves. We can live a healthy lifestyle. We can have strong hearts for our whole lives. We don't need to destroy our bodies every day and just break ourselves down to the point where we get ourselves into this situation. And so that led me to then leave the IT industry, move into the fitness industry. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a life coach, I'm a gym owner, and I'm helping all these people every single day. And I'm using my story as motivation for everybody. And now that's been like 13, 14 years or something that I've been doing that. And it's just been an amazing journey. I've helped thousands of people change their lives, change their healths, and potentially avoid bad situations like what I got myself into when I was younger. And it's been a much more fulfilling life and a much more rewarding life. And I feel like it's only just beginning.
What a crazy busy story. And I love that you're so open about it. So thank you very much.
No worries.
It's really going to help a lot of people. And so I ask my guests the same three questions, you've pretty much answered the first one. And it's normally, what can your expertise do to accelerate health, both physical and then emotional and spiritual? But I'm going to throw you a side question because you've already kind of answered that. So often we're taught not to listen to our bodies, and big pharma and conventional medicine, allopathic medicine, want to be put on a pedestal and don't listen to your body because we know everything. And what would you know? For you, what was that turning point where you checked in with your heart and you went, hey, what are you trying to tell me? Like, what can you offer the listeners about listening to their body?
That's a great, great question. I mean, we do need to tap into that. And that was my marker for whether I was okay or not, whether I could feel my heart like jumping through my chest. And I mean, that wasn't so subtle because of the extent that it got to. But since then, I have definitely had a deeper intuition with my body and how it responds to things like caffeine and sugar. And I don't take medication. I don't buy into big pharma. I don't buy into allopathy or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's something that isn't really taught, and it's something that we're all capable of. And that's the great news, is that we can tap into this. We just have to have that, I guess, that self-awareness, or have a moment where we can check in on ourselves. But it comes back to, I think, confidence in your ability to heal. One of my good friends is a chiropractor, and he has a saying, and it's that the body is self-healing and self-regulating. And I believe that to be true. And we just have to get out of the way sometimes. And I think that a lot of people don't have the faith in themselves to heal, where really everything is just a facilitator for us to do the healing ourselves. So whether that's through a doctor or a medicine or something. But yeah, that's something that people are lacking. I think a lot of people are lacking that confidence. I think it comes down to the confidence and the intuition to tap into that knowingness of that the body is, it is self-healing, it is self-regulating. Like, you don't have to think about your heart beating, or the insulin in your body being regulated, or your breathing, or all of the millions and millions of functions that are going on in your body. And me going back to that IT mindset and that IT background, I always look at the human body as the greatest computer system that has ever been created on the face of the earth, that will never be beaten, it will never be overcome by AI or no matter what kind of technology there ever comes in the future. The human body is the best technology out there. And we just don't have the manual for it. We don't know how it fully operates. So I think that when we can tap into that intuition, and we can take the time and take the moment to, I guess it's called mindfulness, where we check in on ourselves and say, how am I feeling? And how do I feel now? And for me, I think that I got those lessons, well, from the obvious, but then since then, from being really healthy, it does put you at a baseline. And then when you do something unhealthy, like say get drunk or overdose on sugar or overdose on caffeine or something like that, you feel so thrown out of your alignment that it's just so obvious. And you can connect the dot, because it's like, oh, I just ate 10 Easter bunnies on Easter Day, and now my body feels like crap, or I've got I've got certain kind of issues or symptoms or whatever it is. And you can connect the dots that way. But I think when our bodies are full of crap, when we're constantly eating junk food, when we're constantly drinking like Coca-Cola or alcohol, or consuming bad food and not taking care of our bodies, it almost severs that intuitive connection between us and our ability to tap into ourselves and see whether we are okay or not. And I think that getting back to that baseline of health really just amplifies that intuition, and it gives us a deeper understanding of how our body does heal itself and how it does react and respond to negative influences, not only for what you put in your body, but even what's on the news and what we're hearing, around the world, and relationships and conversations with people, workplace stuff. anything that's stressful and negative can have such a huge impact. And yeah, it is hard to determine it when you are constantly just not taking care of yourself, and when your body is full of chemicals, medication, basically numbed out on maybe anti-anxieties, or big pharma meds, or whatever it may be, or just you're just numbing yourself out with food, over consuming calories, and just just not treating your body right. So it's a dilemma. It's an issue. And I think that the solution is for us to put the brakes on and reduce all of the damage that we're doing, and just try and find that baseline of health. And then I think that that is the first stage to then move on from there.
I love it. Listeners, if only there was a camera in my office right now while Jai was talking. I'm here doing a happy dance behind my desk because the things that Jai has just shared with you, preach. Dude, that's the truth. Like,
Hell yeah.
please listen to this episode, share it,
Yep.
like it, subscribe, follow Jay to every other podcast he's on, and me, by the way. But
Yeah.
this is the truth that you need to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Next standard question is around wealth. And it's normally, what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth, financial, emotional, and personal wealth? I believe a lot of your wealth should be obviously your health and your body. You can't hate your legs because they get you around every day.
Mm.
If you have 2 legs at work, that's a form of wealth. A lot of
The
people
assets.
don't.
Yeah.
So what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth? And let's tailor this to listening to your body. You've mentioned one already, and that is, listen to your body's cues, to the whispers of, you have too much caffeine and your body says, please don't do that to me. What are some other ways that people can build their health wealth?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And like I always say, that our body is the greatest asset that we have. It's not your house, or, your crypto account, or, your cash or anything. It's your body, because that's what is bringing in the wealth for you on every level. So I think that managing your energy is probably one of the hugest things. And I mean, it's almost like being like a robot in a sense, but being consistent with a routine is such a huge one, because not only does it help you to maintain a high level of energy and capacity, brain capacity to function, to be able to make the right decisions in your life, but it also sets you up for success in your business, because it's repetition that gets us everything that we want in terms of success. If you need to get from A to B, then it takes daily repetition to accomplish that task or that goal. So I think that if you are trying to get to sleep at the same time, some of us are mums with newborn babies that are waking up every hour crying, and it's for me to say, force yourself to get 8 hours sleep. It's not overly practical and realistic for everybody. So rather than saying get your 8 hours like everybody else says, I rather say get into a routine of sleep where you're going to bed at the same time and you're waking up at the same time. So that's because that's the foundation of your energy. So if you're going to bed at 8 o'clock, and then you're waking up at whatever time you wake up, even if it's interrupted, even if you've got a baby or you got stuff going on, if you can start to get into that pattern, then that's going to manipulate your circadian rhythms. That's going to alter your energy field. So that is the foundation, I think, is to get to bed at the same time every day, and then wake up at the exact same time 7 days a week, no Sundays off. And that's the first thing. And then the second thing is having a morning routine where you are executing the important things, the high value tasks, the things that accumulate wealth in your life on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on a mental level, and on a bank account level as well. So having that, or identifying, the high value things, because, you've probably heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where they say that 20% of the actions that we take are bringing us 80% of the value, and 80% of the actions that we're taking are only bringing us 20% of the value. So we need to identify what those 20% of the highest value returning tasks are, and we need to factor them in as a priority at the beginning of the day or whenever is practical for you to do it with, compliance every day and consistency. And then what happens is over time, you look in the mirror and you're a different person. Like it's unbelievable the amount of things you can accomplish on all levels. But speaking wealth wise, like it's amazing what you can accomplish when you have consistency. And the biggest roadblocks that I see people take in my career, not only from a client perspective where I'm working with clients to improve their health, but also in my industry where I'm associating with other people who do exactly what I do, business owners, entrepreneurs, people, in the fitness space. If either they don't have the consistency in how they run their business, or if the client doesn't have the consistency in executing the high value tasks that they've been given, then nothing changes and they just end up getting frustrated and they don't see results, or it takes a long time, or their results are fluctuating up and down. And you don't grow like that. You don't develop, you don't move forward like that. The most important thing is taking those actions on a regular basis, even if those actions are imperfect, because they improve over time. Like everything that you do gets better and better. If you refer back to when you first started driving a car, you get your license and you're pretty much a crappy driver on your L's, can't merge into lanes and, can't do multitasking like operate the blinker, maybe while changing gears and putting the clutch in and keeping in between the lines, right? But then over time, your imperfect action becomes perfected. And that is the mindset that I think a lot of people don't have, because the emotions get in the way. And then the emotions stop us from the execution because it's like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. This is frustrating. This is hard. Or like this workout sucks. Or I don't like this. But it's like, no, go do that workout. Go do that walk. Go to bed. Don't stay up and binge or stick to that diet plan. Don't eat that chocolate or don't drink that extra glass of wine or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But like just pulling yourself back all the time and just sticking to that consistency, I feel like the gold of all of the world comes from consistency.
Very true. Right. Final standard question is around weight. Many people look particularly at personal trainers and go, well, what would you know? You've never had a weight problem. You've never been where I am, where my knees hurt and everything hurts. Have you ever had a weight problem? If so, how did you win the war? And what can you offer the listeners who might be on this journey, looking at their fitness people in their lives going, yeah, no, you've never been where I am?
That's such a great question. And what's interesting is that it's a huge misconception as well, because there are a huge amount of people in the fitness industry that came from that exact same place that that person that you suggest is saying, where they were overweight, they had a transformational moment, they went through that huge transformation of weight loss and reducing body fat and getting themselves fit. And then they were so accomplished and excited and motivated from that they want to help other people. There's one commonality that I've found in the health industry. It's that people that get into the health industry, whether it's coaching or personal training, they want to help people. That's really what it comes down to. They are the type of people that just want to help people. And a huge amount of them have gone through exactly that, which the clients are going through at that time, which is trying to, lose weight in this case. For me, yeah, my weight has fluctuated pretty much throughout my entire adult life. As a child, I was pretty much a skinny kid. Like when I was really young, like under 12, I was too skinny. I was the one in the family where my grandparents and my parents and my auntie and uncles and stuff, they'd be like, you need to eat more, finish the food on your plate. And I'd be there going, I'm not hungry. And so I was that underweight kid, and I was a scrawny kid and all that kind of stuff. And then once I became an adult and got a part-time job and started making an income and started going to McDonald's and started drinking soft drink and started basically just doing whatever the hell I wanted to, I gained a lot of weight. And I went from 78 kilos all the way up to 92 kilos at one point. And I would just fluctuate constantly. And I would try and battle that by playing more sport, going for runs, going to the gym and lifting weights, trying to gain more muscle. And that's why I fluctuated, because there were times where I made the right changes, just fluking my way through it. But ultimately, I never looked into the diet side of things. And ultimately, that's where it's the missing link, really. It's the diet and getting that right. And a lot of people don't get the whole thing. Like they think, you need to go to the gym and lift weights for, 2 hours every day and be this, gym rat, when it's just not the case. The best approach to managing weight and dealing with that is looking towards the calories, eating as healthy as you possibly can, using your discernment around what is healthy and what isn't, like, basic knowledge of eating vegetables and things like that. But then also, if you really have a problem with your weight, then you need to measure, because a great quote from Tony Robbins, one of my favorite mentors, is you can't manage what you don't measure. And if you are not measuring the changes that you're implementing, then how do you know whether they're working or not? And the greatest thing that you can manage and measure to lose weight and to just change your health overall is what you're putting in your body, because it has the biggest impact on how your body responds. And so, in terms of gaining weight, the thing that everybody needs to understand, so if you're listening right now and you're carrying an extra, say, 10 kilos or 20 kilos or more of excess weight, and you've got sore knees and you don't know what to do or how to, and you've tried diet pills and you've been to doctors and maybe you've even had surgeries and they haven't worked for you, which that's been the case a lot, then what I would suggest is don't worry about hurting your knees more by going out and running and going to the gym and getting a personal trainer, doing any of that stuff. The best thing to do is to just start out by changing your diet. And the way you approach it is by understanding how many calories your body needs to consume, because that is based off your metabolism. So we can talk about having big bones and having slow metabolisms all we want, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help us get the result that we want. And at the end of the day, your body is self-healing and it is self-regulating, and you need to get out of the way of that. And the way you need to get out of the way of that is by not telling yourself that you're big boned and that you have a slow metabolism and that nothing works for you and that you've tried everything. Because if you tried everything, then you would have accomplished the result. But you haven't tried everything. You've tried everything that doesn't work for you. So now it's time to try the thing that works for you. And the thing that will work for you is understanding your metabolism. So what do? You just simply get onto Google and you look up macro calculator, and then you put in your information. I am a male, I'm 42 years old, I weigh 84 kilos, and I'm 183 centimeters tall. Enter. And then that will tell you, okay, great, here's your metabolism. Your body burns 2,000 calories a day. Great. Now I know that my body is going to burn 2,000 calories a day. That is my metabolism. That is how my metabolism operates. So if I were to speed up my metabolism, then I would just simply go for a walk, because I would burn an additional, say, 100 calories. So now my metabolism is 2,100 calories. It went up. So I just sped up my metabolism by going for a walk. So what also that means is I can eat 2,100 calories of food and I won't gain weight because I'm burning it off. So the problem that most people have is that they're eating way more calories than their metabolism is burning on a 24-hour basis. The metabolism can't keep up with the consumption. So, and the reason why that is because we live in the fast food era where everything is junk and high calorie because that's what sells. So they put all this sugar in, they put all the salt in, they put all the fat in, they put just, calories upon calories into all this junk food, and mostly coming from oil and, fried stuff and everything. So it holds all of these calories. Oil is very high calorie, fat is very high calorie. So 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. Whereas if you look at protein or carbohydrates, 1 gram of protein or 1 gram of carbohydrate is only 4 calories. So if you eat more protein and more carbohydrates than you do fat, then your overall calories will be lower over the day, so you will not be in a huge surplus. What we actually need to do is get ourselves into a deficit. So if you start going back to the Tony Robbins quote, is you can't manage what you're not measuring. If you start to manage the calories that you're consuming, so calories make up 3 macronutrients, which is the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fats. We need all 3 of them, but at what ratios? If you're eating junk food, then you're probably astronomically over the limit for fat and carbohydrates, and very often, but not always, under the limit for protein. So what we want to do is we need to change that up. We need to increase our protein calories. We need to have a medium to moderate level of carbohydrate calories. And then we need to reduce the fat calories a little bit if we want to burn fat and we want to lose weight, because that's going to bring our overall calorie consumption down. So it's a numbers game, really. And if we can look at like the whole scenario like that, then it is just, plain numbers on paper, and you can succeed. And not only that, you actually see rapid results, because this is how I've been getting results for my clients for many years. And it works not only for them, but also for myself. It works for my wife. It works for my family. And yeah, and it works for my clients. And it works basically for everybody. There's nobody that it doesn't work for, because we all have a metabolism. We all burn a X amount of calories in a day. So if you can just match your diet to your metabolism, then you'll see the results. And it doesn't mean that you have to, what do they say, eat like a rabbit or eat rabbit food or just eat lettuce and celery or whatever. You can eat technically whatever you want. Just eat it within the rations that meet your daily requirements to match your metabolism. And then what you'll find is all of that excess weight that's been loading up and loading up and loading up from all the excess calories that are unable to get burnt off, they end up getting burnt up and being used up because you're in a deficit. So you burn up all of that excess weight that's in your body, all of that energy gets all burnt up and converted into energy and used up, all that fat. And then now you're at your ideal weight. You feel amazing. You got more energy. Wow, your metabolism's up now because you've got more energy to burn. You want to burn more. You're more active. You can work out now. You don't have sore knees. You can walk. You can even run. You can play sports. You can do whatever. So the more activity you add onto your 24-hour day, the higher your metabolism goes. So the lower the excess body weight that you're carrying, it's like a cycle, and it all just kind of works and keeps on getting better and better and better. So, ultimately, we need to take a step back. We need to assess and measure the amount of consumption versus the output. And then we need to alter those ratios. You can still have your chocolate cake. You can still have your glass of wine. You can still even eat pizza if you want. Just make sure that it factors in with those calories and with, your metabolism, and you're totally fine. Last week, Kate and I, my wife and I, we made some homemade on the weekend. Actually, we made some homemade pizzas. We hadn't had pizzas in such a long time. We don't buy pizzas. We try to keep it as healthy as possible, but we felt like pizza, and we're like, hey, why don't we make our own pizza? So we made our own pizza. We went and bought the ingredients, and it was amazing. It was phenomenal. The calories were higher than what we would normally have because we put a bunch of cheese on there and stuff, but we just factored it in and it worked. So you can have the things that it's like a lot of people are scared to jump into something like this because they think they've got to give up so much, but you're not giving up anything. You're just changing the way you do it. And that's really, the key to success in my eyes. And I think that's how we can get to that next level and tick that box of, moving from I'm overweight, my knees hurt, I feel crap, and you don't get it, to no, listen to what they're saying, because there's education behind, personal training. There's education behind health coaching. There is a method to the madness. It does work. You just got to get the right person, get the right program, understand your body, and then get out of the way and execute, basically.
Love it. Okay, we have covered so much. The listeners' ears are probably bursting with all the information coming out of their brains. So where can people find you? And also, do you have a freebie for them?
Absolutely. And absolutely. So I am on Instagram for the most part. I document my life so people can see how easy it can be done. So I wake up in the morning and I start documenting what I'm doing, what supplements I'm taking, what exercises I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. I talk about certain books I'm reading and everything. That's all on Instagram. So you can find me there. And Instagram, the handle is at SQ1 Fitness AUS. SQ1 Fitness AUS. And then you can also check out my website if you want to look at the programs I offer. So you can do group coaching with me, or you can do one-on-one coaching with me. And my website is sq1fitness.com.au. And I have a free 7-day program. and it's called a Reboot. And basically, I set you up with everything that I've said. I get all of the information that I need from you, and then I set you up with the ideal calories for your body type and your metabolism. I preset your protein in how many grams per day specifically I want you to have, how many grams of carbohydrates, how many grams of fat. I also give you a workout program. Now, that workout program it varies depending on the person. So if you are overweight and have bad knees, then it might just be going for a 10-minute walk every day if that's all you can handle. So it's scaled to the individual, but it could also scale all the way up to going to the gym and lifting weights. So it depends on the person, and it also depends on their goals as well. Sometimes I'll get a client who's signed up for a marathon, and they're like, I'm running a marathon in September and I need to train for it and I don't know how to train for it. It's like, great. So then, they'll be running in there because that's their specific thing. So it's a 7-day Reboot, and you can access it via the website. You just put in your details, and then I will get an email and follow you up and get you set up in my app. So you'll have a private app where you can access your workout program. You can message me directly, so we stay in contact back and forward. You'll have a diet plan in there. I give you all the recipes. I basically tell you every single thing that you need to do for a week, and just to get the ball rolling for you. And then from there, after the week, basically you have a whole bunch of knowledge that you can take on and choose to do with it what you want to do. Or if you want to go deeper and work together with me, then there's the option to do that as well.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, Jai. Thank you so much for joining us on A Magical Life. We've really loved having you.
Excellent. It's been great to be here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you for your time. Please do like, review, share, subscribe. We love your feedback. Jump onto our Facebook page, look for A Magical Life podcast. Let us know what you want to hear about. If you have any burning listener questions, pop them in there. And for now, go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health, that's holistic with a W, or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.